Hello, fellow freethinkers. A Wisconsin-based nonprofit, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, has urged Snead State Community College in Alabama to stop holding prayers at staff events and including religious messages in official communications. The FRF's letter was prompted by complaints from a staff member, and it highlights concerns from the staff about feeling uncomfortable and pressured to participate in Christian prayers. Now, the FRF has contended that such practices violate the First Amendment's Establishment Clause, which I agree with, and it's calling for government neutrality in matters of religion. The organization does have a history of advocacy for separation of church and state, including cases in Alabama. This article is entitled "Alabama Community College President's Staff Prayers Pushing Religion," group says. And it's from AL.com, written by William Thornton, published September 13th, 2023. And I'm going to hand it off to Infidel. What do you got for us, Infidel?
Well, Kelly, first I have to say, Alabama, again. I have to admit, sometimes I wonder if Alabama is just not trying to be the poor cousin of Florida or Texas. I mean, it's just another place with outdated bad ideas flourishing and thriving. And, this whole thing about prayers before meals and at staff events, I mean, it really should be a no-brainer. It really, we're past, you would think we would be past this point by now. And I did notice it talked about Joe Whitmore presenting a guiding Bible verse for the staff every year. And all I could think of is Joe really sounds really fun at parties. I mean, who loves anything more than a good moralizer standing in the corner yelling at everybody? I mean, it's the reason I go to parties. It's the only reason to go. But, hearing about the staff member being forced to participate in this and being uncomfortable with it, I know that there's going to be some pushback saying, it's just us doing our thing. It's not a big deal. Why is some group from Wisconsin coming in here and telling us what we should be doing here in Alabama? Well, they look at it, and we talked about many times about how, there's certain people, once again, this religious right who LGBTQ, if they just see somebody existing, well, that's an agenda. Well, they're actually literally pushing an agenda here, but that's okay. Now, I know Snead is a state college now, but it started out as a religious school in 1898, became part of the system in 1967, but it's not in 1898. It's not even 1967. It's 2023, and even in Alabama. So what do you think, Jimmy?
I think that was a perfect point to hand it off to me, because I couldn't agree more with the fact that not only are we not in the 1800s and we're not in the very tumultuous 1960s as far as civil rights are concerned, but in this day and age, this school exists under the Alabama State Board of Education, and having these prayers and these Bible studies, etc., just goes against what's guaranteed in the Constitution, and that is the right of us as Americans to not be in a system that is sponsored or in which excuse me, get a little tongue twisted. To not exist in a system where the state sponsors religion. That's what I was trying to say. And so this is going back, way back in time to where it did start as a seminary. And I would just say this is probably an example of old habits dying really hard, because I really would expect nothing less. And we've talked in segments before where I have to have some self-awareness of my own biases when I consider the religious right and the white nationalist conservative movement. It is really kind of propagated by institutions like these down in the Deep South. And so I'm not surprised. It's not right, but I'm not surprised. And so there's still some work to be done in that area. I think it's going to be a long road. And yeah, Kelly, what do you have to say about that?
As Infidel mentioned, its school was once a Christian seminary, and it's almost like they didn't change management. The same management is there. I know it's not, but it sure looks the same. And what I found interesting, and it mentioned in the article, is that the team name is the Parsons. The Parsons, really? They couldn't even come up with a secular name for the sports team. They actually had to name it after a type of a holy man. What the hell is going on down there in Alabama? Do they teach evolution in the biology classes there? And do they even have science classes at all? You know, besides the intelligent design classes. I just don't get it. I'm not against somebody praying at school. It's legal. You can do it whatever you want. But the school itself can't sanction it if it's a public run school, period. They just can't. And when you have the president of the school leading prayers before meals on the campus and before meetings on campus, he has crossed over the line because he is the school. He's representing the school at a school event. This is just egregious breaking the rules. So I don't even know where to go after this. Infidel, want to follow up with? I mean, from there, I had a little tongue tied myself there, Jimmy.
I've got to say that having a little bit of experience of being aware of what a ripoff concessions can be at a high school game, Parsons might be a pretty honest representation because. You know, there's probably some theft going on pretty bad. So if there's one thing we know they're good at, you know, they can get a hold of the money. So, you know, maybe they're adequately named there. But seriously, you know, it is no joking matter. At the end of the day, this is exactly what it looks like. And that is a situation where change is going to come about kicking and screaming. No one said anything till now, so there's no problem, right? And that's a very dishonest way to look at things. But you know, that's one way that we see time and again places like Alabama and some of their neighbors, one of your old states, Jimmy, that you know, it's a matter of, you know, it's as long as nobody's saying anything, everything's really okay. And then of course, if you do say something, well, what's wrong with them? They really should know their place. And so we kick back into that old familiar trope of, you know, if people weren't so uppity and just knew what they should be doing, everything would be just fine. And I think that unfortunately, that's what we're probably going to see happen a lot with the people in the surrounding area who are directly impacted with this. But the bottom line is change needs to come about, whether they're ready for it or not. You know, it isn't, as you mentioned, the tumultuous 60s or the late 1800s. It is 2023. It's going to happen one way. That sometimes it does look a little shaky. I have to believe that in the long run, we're going to see this play out like it should, because this won't last forever. And Jimmy, you have any thoughts on that?
I do. So I kind of can relate to what some of the complaints are here. So the letter from the attorney reads that the people complaining about this feel that they are being forced to bow their head and participate, because not doing so would require them to expose their personal beliefs and potentially be subject to retribution. Now, yeah. I can relate to that because I am in the military. And I do want to say, since I'm on the subject, my thoughts and opinions are completely my own. And I don't represent the Department of Defense or military in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, we do come from very Christian conservative roots, even to seeing changes for women's dress and appearance in the last few years. I mean, up until I think it was 2019, women had to wear skirts in their dress uniforms. I came into a military that was under the don't ask, don't tell policy of the Clinton era. And I'm now very proud that I get to supervise transgender troops underneath me. So I've seen a lot of growth, but where we lack is the kind of religious growth that I think a lot of people wish they could see, right? And so I'll go to a holiday party, right? Because it's got to be non-denominational, it's got to be non-specific, but the person that gets up to say the prayer immediately turns it into a Christian gathering, right? And the rest of us, you know, unlike what the people in Alabama are experiencing, it's actually kind of fun because everybody bows their head and we're kind of looking around having a party, like pointing out, you know, hey, oh, look, an atheist. Hey, look, hey, you don't believe either, you know, and it's kind of like, all right, man, you know, so I know who my people are. But I think all that to say, I'm not really surprised. This is the Deep South. This is going to happen. I mean, you can pick your battles. Sounds like these people pick their battles and want something done about it. In other ways, people may not be speaking up and they may just deal with it, go get their education. And that's okay too, I guess. I don't want to put any pressure on anybody to say you have to be an activist, you have to do something. You really have to do what's right for you. And I'll close out my comments here with the fact that, if these people want to pray, if they want to, be religious in their government-funded, government-subsidized institution, then go to a non-government subsidized institution. Go find a job somewhere else where these actions are going to be welcome. Nobody is preventing you from practicing your faith in a manner that's appropriate for everybody. And so, again, whenever you have a choice to make, you can always be cool or you can choose to be an asshole. And it seems like these people are just choosing the asshole route, and they shouldn't do that. So, Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember why we have the separation of church and state in the United States. I think most people and most religious people in the United States today think it's to keep them out of the government. And that's not really why it was put there. I mean, that is part of it. But what we really wanted to do is keep the government out of religion. You have to remember our forefathers watched as Europe was ablaze with religious wars for 2 centuries. England alone was officially Protestant, then Catholic, then Protestant, then Catholic several times over. The king or queen would be Protestant, and then the Catholics would be persecuted, hence the secret priest holes. I don't know if people know about those, but a lot of old houses in England have little hidey holes for priests to hide into for when the Protestants came to round them up, burn them or hang them. And then a few years later, a Catholic ruler would take the throne and the reverse would happen. Then it would be Protestants being let off to the stake. So I don't think this is really what Christians want. I think for the government to choose one religious sect over the others is something that they really, really don't want. And they should start thinking about how much they want to interject themselves into the government. I think they think it's okay because they feel like, well, we're the #1 religion in America. We're Christians, so that is the one true religion. Of course, we're right, so it's okay for us to be this way. But how do you decide which sect of Christianity takes over? Would it be the same one the president is? Does that make any sense? Then we'd all have to be Catholics right now and nothing else, right? That's it. And I don't know what church Trump belongs to, so I don't know where we go for that one. Some crazy right-wing evangelical church, I'm guessing he would endorse something that Paula White church maybe. And can you imagine the chaos it would cause if the official national church changed every 4 to 8 years? You honestly, you don't have to imagine. You just got to go read some 16th, 17th century European history to see what would happen. Glenn, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I had to say that I think I know exactly what church he would choose. And it's called the highest bidder, because that's his thing. We know that answer. And that may change weekly too. And he's pretty good at the backstab as well. So that may change on a regular basis. But seriously, I was raised in a religious faith that we were heretical. We were in a very small minority. And this whole idea of a Christian leadership would have been unheard of then. I mean, because we knew we'd have fell on the wrong end of it. But now people seem to forget that. And they think that they all want to say that, or at least think that if the Christians are in power, it's going to be the Christians like us. Whatever us is, that's going to vary according to what group you have, but it's going to be our kind, the good kind of Christian, the real Christian. And, I think that Jimmy's right when he mentioned picking battles as well, because, the truth is that a lot of this does reek of the same, where they go around, have a blessed day. They're go ahead and they're underlying that, undertoning that in to get a feel you out, going ahead with that, who I am and what I am. I get a lot of this in this case too, because come on, really, at the end of the day, you know, I doubt that the head of the school is, you know, dedicating his life for the betterment of Christianity. No, he's just being a smug, typical Christian, smearing it in everybody's face, even when often enough he probably doesn't even realize he's doing that. It's just, well, it's what the people around me do. I'm being that, you know, glorified Pharisee, and I'm going to present and show myself who I am. And that's really what it all really reeked at me, because the Bible says to keep your praying private. So he's already breaking one of the basic rules in the first place. So I don't know what his deal is, but I think the courts will rein this in the long run, because it's really quite clear. It's not really debatable at all. Now, Jimmy?
Yeah, great points. A lot to go off of there. I think Kelly's history lesson was excellent, and I think it's a factor that we forget about a lot. And you know, it ties directly into what you're saying, Infidel, because you know, what if this precedent was set where some sect of Christianity, or Christianity in general, let's say, is just a state-sponsored religion, and then the tides turn, and now we have a Hindu or we have a Muslim religion that starts to take hold. Now those Christians that were such proponents of that change have to live with the consequences of their own decisions, something that they thought was going to benefit them. And I think that Kelly's historical analysis and your contemporary analysis are perfect data points for explaining why exactly this is you know, not good for society as a whole. And your point about Infidel, your point about the highest bidder was spot on. Not only, you know, theoretically, right? It's funny when we talk about, you know, Trump and his business tactics, right? But in reality, what's stopping anybody from buying church allegiance and buying the church's checkbook, or at least endorsing the church's checkbook, right? I mean, we have to keep that far, far away. And so I think that those were excellent points. I think, you know, understanding the Constitution and where it comes from, even though it was written by men who raped their slaves, you know, does have some strong points to it. And so I just thought that was really good. I did have another point that kind of slipped my mind in your expert commentaries that I might have to just find it, you know, some other time. But great discussion.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good discussion. I'm glad we had it. And I guess with that, we'll wrap it up. And if you're going to be in the Austin area, September 24th, you should stop by the Free Thought Library for live recordings of Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience. It's a lot of fun. I've done it twice so far this year. I would do it every month if I didn't live so far away, because it is so much fun. Do it. And if you want to hear more from the nonprofits, you can get it right here.